Welcome back to the BlackLetter podcast. We set out to create an entertaining and exciting podcast about law and business, and I think we've done it. BlackLetter, the name, comes from the Gothic typeset that was originally used in the Gutenberg press. Over time, BlackLetter became the only font that English law books were printed in. Everything else was printed in regular type. It made it harder for kind of the common person to understand what the English law book said. BlackLetter came to represent something that was law, that was set in stone, that was the sort of old and a well-settled fundamental principle of law. We're here to demystify BlackLetter law. We're here to demystify things that happen in business and law and where those two meet. And I hope you have fun listening. Welcome to the BlackLetter podcast. Today I have with me Mike Snow and Chris Boris of Pearson Smith Realty, and joining them in the middle here is George Hawkins, an attorney with Dunlap Bennett and Ludwig who works with Pearson Smith Realty. Pearson Smith, from what I understand, is the fastest growing residential real estate firm in the DC metro area, and George has been with them and helped them grow, and they have signed kind of their secrets to their success as a real estate firm. So we're going to talk a little bit about what makes them different and how they've been successful, so all the real estate agents and brokers and others out there can get their secrets for free. And at the same time, George is going to talk about the problems he's helped them deal with, and they're going to share whether or not George did a good job. So without further ado, Mike, we were talking before the show a little bit, and I asked you, well, what is the secret sauce? How do you grow so quickly? I mean, I assume to grow, you need to get agents, real estate agents, to join your company. What makes you different? Why do agents join you instead of another real estate brokerage?
Right. First, almost all the credit goes to Eric and Chuck. I mean, they've created this company back in 2015.
And who are Eric and Chuck?
Eric and Chuck are the owners of our company.
Pearson and Smith.
Pearson and Smith.
I figured that, but I wanted to get it out there.
Yeah, no, good. Yeah, good call.
Podcaster listeners.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, so they came together back in 2015. Chuck is Fortune 500 CFO. Eric was the boy genius real estate guru. They came together in 2015 with their team of 15, and Eric had a team of 15. And he asked Chuck, and Chuck was thinking about leaving his other job. And Eric convinced Chuck, hey, I'm starting this real estate company. Leave your, VP status over here and come join me with this 15-person team that I have. Eric's a very good salesperson and convinced Chuck to do that. And so January 1st, 2015, Pearson Smith was created with 15 agents with one small office out of Sterling.
So 2015, 4 years ago, roughly. Mm-hmm. How big are you guys now?
We are almost at 900 agents.
900 agents, so from 15 to 900 in 4 years.
Yeah.
So how does that happen?
So the numbers actually, I think we hit just under 1,000 at the end of last year.
Oh wow!
But we made some changes, did a little house cleaning, so to speak. We dropped about 232 agents. Mm-hmm. And then that brought us down into the 800s. And now since January, we're back up into the 900s, approaching 1,000 again.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So just a cleaner, solid group. So why does an agent want to join you guys instead of joining a competitor? I won't throw competitors' names out there like, Long and Foster, Keller Williams. I won't throw those out there. I just did. So what makes you different?
Well, the big three things when we meet with agents are our culture. We do have even though we are creeping towards 1,000 agents, very family-oriented company. Okay. So culture, we work really, really hard, but Eric and Chuck, the owners, they like to reward the agents in a fun way, whether it's a crab fest or renting out Dave & Buster's like they did last month for our team meetings. Mm-hmm. So culture's a big thing. Technology is huge. So we offer one of the more robust technology suites, in our opinion, compared to other agencies.
Is it proprietary?
No, it's not proprietary. These are just things that Eric and Chuck said, because Eric was such a high producing agent, he built this brokerage as agent focused and agent centric. So he knows if he was still practicing today, this is what he would want. And he did use a lot of these tools, and over the course of time, probably once or twice a quarter, he'll add in a technology tool that will, that he can announce at our company meetings. Say, hey guys, we looked at it. This tool may not be used as much. This is the new thing off the street. We just purchased it. Let's go.
So I'm interested. How do you maintain when you go from 15 agents, right? You've got a culture and you guys can get together and go to a bar together, happy hour. 900 agents, you can't go to a bar together.
It was a much bigger bar.
Yeah, we just keep finding bigger bars.
But do they all fit in David? But I mean, how do you maintain that culture? Do you use policies? Do you have HR issues? Obviously, you dropped 232 people. I mean, how do you deal with those challenges?
So, on the 232 people, we didn't, necessarily drop them. We just made tweaks to the plan, kind of the business plan. And, it was something where those agents either got out of real estate or put their
like
licenses
part-time.
Yeah, was the largest portion.
Gotcha.
And 50 or 60 of them went to our referral company.
I gotcha.
Because they just weren't doing enough business for it to really make sense for the association fees and everything like that.
Sure.
So, at the end of the day, we've always had an open door policy. So Mike has been with them since the very, very beginning. I came on board around February of 2015, then became an employee April 1st of 2015. So Mike was with Eric's team, and, the company formed as Eric's team. Pretty much everyone came over and joined. So, the neat thing about the company is, we're very compartmentalized with each of the players. Eric, Chuck, me, and Mike, everyone's very good at a set of tools, and we kind of stick to what we know. So on my end, I'm compliance and I'm the brokerage, side of it. And then, Mike is still an active agent, but mostly managing at this point. He's kind of transitioned into managing over the years. And Mike and Eric are just awesome with technology and coaching. And Chuck is our money guy.
Right.
So, we have Chuck's daughter, Lauren, is in our accounting department. So, the entire setup is just, everyone's very comfortable with what they do, and we have an open door policy. And a lot of the agents constantly that join us will, they'll walk up to me, and I'm principal broker of the firm. I'm not even one of the owners, but they'll walk up and say, I've never met my principal broker at the firm, let alone had an open door policy with them.
Is that because of the size of these other firms?
Or
is it just the culture?
It's a little bit of both, I would say. At the end of the day, I try to have my door open as much as possible because it's awesome to interact with all the agents. Now, at the size that we're at, we have 5 managing brokers.
Yeah.
So, we've grown Virginia, DC, Maryland, and we're in West Virginia. So, we have a super dynamic staff that's able to operate in all the jurisdictions. And the thing that I found...
So you leverage that for your other brokers. You're like, hey, we could...
Absolutely.
You're here in Loudoun or Fairfax. If you've got something in West Virginia, we've got you covered, and you're going to get paid for it, and you're part of our team.
And we have good people that can help you. So
it's in-house. Yeah.
The thing that the fascinating thing, just watching the company grow, because at my stage in my career, I'm 30 years in the business. When I met these guys, it was, to me, it was the closest thing to working in Silicon Valley for a startup.
Right.
I'm like, hey, I've been doing this for, 27, 28 years or however many it was. It's like, this is pretty cool. If it works out, this is going to be very cool. So for me, I just jumped in because I just liked Eric and Chuck and Mike, and we all just got along and everything.
And if it didn't work out, it's Silicon Valley, the TV show.
There you go. Exactly. So. And then we'd be sitting here talking about what not to do.
Yeah, right.
So
it's nice to be on the other side of that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Knock on wood. So far, so good. So with what Mike was saying, and what the thing I find most interesting is that we've grown organically.
Yeah.
There are a lot of companies out there that just hammer the agents out there nonstop. Hey, join us, come have a free lunch, come this. We're all word of mouth. And that's what's remarkable is how fast we grow and continue to grow going into our, 5th year now?
Yeah.
5 years, over 900 agents, incredible. You've added 800 and something. Right? 880 agents or something. So that's fantastic. So next question for you guys.
Can I just follow up one more thing?
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
So one more thing. So Eric and Chuck, again, very in the vision of it, they see that, right? You grow so fast, you want to keep that family feel. So once a month, a neat thing they rent out the movie theater below the Ashburn office, the biggest one we have. So I think it's like 300, 350 agents can go into that theater, and we have a brokerage meeting. So market updates, what's going on in the industry, what's going on in our brokerage. And then on top of that, we also have Facebook Live. We leverage that heavily. So even though we can't see everyone on a weekly or monthly basis personally, we are on a Facebook Live show with all the brokers and owners of the company. We get on once every 2 weeks now, just so that we can still have interaction. And even though the folks can't watch it when we film it, it's in our internal Facebook page. It's private.
So they can see it anytime.
So they can go back and watch it at their leisure.
It's a good idea.
Yeah.
So that's a neat leveraging of available free technology, right? You took Facebook Live and turned it into a way to maintain company culture.
Right.
So next big question, obviously to have 900 agents, you have to be doing business. You have to probably sell a house or two. I think probably the region you're in is helpful too. It seems like there's a few people buying houses in the region.
Absolutely.
So there's been a little bit of growth. But how do you attract, what makes you different from another real estate company if I'm a homeowner or looking to sell a home or looking to buy a home? Like why do they prefer your company overall? I know they're personal relationships, get that, but your company, what drives that brand?
In terms of Pearson Smith?
Yeah.
So Pearson Smith, and so in the region now, even though we've been around like five years or so, I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but we are now up there in the top 5 in almost every county. So from a sales perspective, we can say, hey, we're selling just as much as all those big brands that you see out there, and here's the numbers to show it. Also, another thing that makes us unique is we are one of, without a doubt, one of the largest online lead buyers in the country.
Okay.
So in a lot of people, in a lot of traditional places, some see value in them. We see a lot of value in them, where we spend quite a bit of money on the Zillows and the Realtor.coms and the Homes.com. And so we pour in a lot of money to be able to have the opportunity to attract those buyers who are looking. So how that makes sense on the home sale front.
You buy leads of buyers on those sites. You're not buying the sellers.
No, but it translates over into the seller, because when you go onto a listing appointment, because we have sort of that first step look, we have a database that we can actually tap into. So when agents are going on listing appointments, they say, hey, right now my company, because right now we have about pushing 200,000 leads in our system.
Wow.
We can actually sort, you reverse engineer it and say, when you're on your listing appointment, hey, we actually have, and I know for a fact, 7 different agents in our company that are looking in this neighborhood. 3 of them are actually looking to buy between 0 and 3 months, and the other 4 are looking between 3 and 6. If we get this listing,
and that's data no one else has.
Well, I don't say anybody, but because there are multiple people that can buy a lead.
Okay.
But there's probably only a handful, maybe 2 or 3 that buy on our scale.
And also, there's not a lot of companies that understand what to do with the leads, because you see a lot of models where you buy the lead, and then if they don't buy something immediately, you move on to the next one, and you just siphon, through the.
But you drop the leads otherwise.
Right, but we don't. So we have an awesome database that's actually sorted by like kind of what Mike's describing. So, when you go on a listing appointment, you can literally say, hey, within our brokerage, we have 5 agents with 5 buyer prospects that are looking in, your area, and they want to buy in the next 0 to 6 months.
Wow.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So that's even bigger than those radio ads you hear where they say they have thousands or hundreds of thousands of leads. It's more discreet than that. You can say in your neighborhood itself, I can find the person for you already.
No, exactly. And we have, a really good, our Pearson Smith Realty agent forum is just spectacular. And the nice thing with all of our agents is they all are very willing to share. No one, a lot of brokerages I've worked at over the years and been part of, it's all very secretive. I'm not going to tell you how I'm successful, because then you're going to be successful and I'm going to lose business to you. But the forum is just crazy because, someone will post, hey, I've got, a house coming up in, Clifton. And then boom, you'll just suddenly start to get hits. Hey, when can we get in? I've got people there in that area. On top of everything else that we have in the database, it's remarkable to me just watching from what we're able to do as a company and how the industry's changed just in the time I've been.
The coming soon period is very
industry's
dynamic.
changed, right? And there's a lot of I mean, the growth has been incredible in these counties, DC metro area particularly, where you guys operate. What problems have you run into? How has George helped you? Like, how many fights have you been in? Or, I mean, I assume you can't grow like that without some...
Here's the good news.
Yeah.
And we're going to blow our own horn on this one, but knock on wood, we have not had to step foot into a courtroom.
That's right.
And who do you,
and that is George has been
And we have to give credit to Chris, and we have to give credit for Chris for going too, because I remember sitting in the room with Eric and Chuck and Chris like, we need this. I mean, this is back first 6 months on the job probably, and you're like, we need legal counsel. And we're all like, and then we went.
We hate lawyers.
Yeah,
we don't want to pay lawyers.
And then it turns into we meet him, George, and it's right, boom, and he's been with us ever since.
Oh, George came highly recommended, and we met with them. We left, and we're like, all right, we need this guy. Can we afford this guy? Because we were only how many agents when?
Yeah,
I mean, we weren't even 70.
So I actually gave you a deal for the first 10 hours.
Oh, that's right.
So
he helped us pay him.
That's right.
That's nice. What's the wackiest thing George has had to do for you in the last 4 years of massive growth?
The wackiest thing, I mean, here's the thing with George that's nice is when we need him, he's on point immediately, and he just gives us how it is. You know, it's not, oh, maybe this, oh, maybe that. He'll say, look, this is what you should do. And then 9.9999 times out of 10, we just agree with them. And so far, like I said, we haven't had to step into a courtroom, which for our size brokerage and our volume is truly remarkable.
It's remarkable for any size business that's close to you.
So George has really just steered us. I mean, wacky-wise, I mean,
then you can share I
have to think of some of. I mean, we've had some.
Well, generally speaking, when I represent brokerages, the kind of calls I get is the agent who's let their client run amok in the house, and the owner has liberally videotaped and audio recorded the antics.
The agent running amok?
No, the agent's clients. They were shuffling through the jewelry box, kids jumping up and down, holding a 2.5-hour client meeting inside somebody else's house.
And a lot of the consumers, forget that not everyone, but a lot of people have these Nest thermostats, cameras, recorders, right? And it's not just Nest; it's everything now. It's we always tell our agents, hey, when you show a property, show it, leave, and then talk about it. Because you're probably on camera.
We actually were like, should we give this? Oh my gosh, that's a good point.
The negotiation strategy is given away.
We've had this is not with us. This is a previous life. But I remember someone saying, "Oh, you know what? We need to talk about whatever we need to talk about outside because one of the sellers had a baby camera in the room and they were next door with their
agent
with the monitor.
Oh wow!
So it was strong enough to go through the wall and they were listening to what was going on. So no sensitive talk, obviously, inside you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So we had to send, that was one of our first, we had to send George, I sent him photos and I don't know if I had the audio, I think I had the audio recording. And I was like, George, look at the photos, listen to the audio, call me. And he called like a second later, he goes, what am I looking at? I said, Well,
we smoothed all the ruffled feathers among the brokerages and the agents, and we handled it as an administrative matter with the agent. And I don't know if she's still with you, but she certainly got clear direction after that about what should and shouldn't be done.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I also see this whole Nest phenomenon. I'd just like to hit on that because it's interesting to me. I don't think as a home, I haven't bought a home in 14 years, but as a home person buyer, possibly, I never thought of that. And so it's like buying a car with my wife. She'll see a car, she's like, oh my gosh, I love this. I have to have this. Freaking leave, right? Because we're not going to get $1 off this car. And the car salesman's like,
and that's
like evil laugh, right? So I assume that's what's going on.
And it's not a laughing matter because if the Nest is video only, then it's legal in Virginia. But if it's audio, then it's illegal because it's an intercept. And so you have to kind of caution your agents about encouraging that type of thing.
Well, it's in their own home.
Right, but you still can't intercept people's conversations when you have business invitees.
Yeah.
Come to my house.
No, it's a business invitee.
Yeah,
Right?
so we've actually,
You would never know in most cases. That's the challenge.
right, and it's like speeding, and only when you're caught.
Right. In this particular situation, both brokerages got a little bit out of it because, it was one of the first for both brokerages.
Interesting problem.
Where we stepped back going, this, we hear about it, but boom, here it is. It's happening in front of us. So it was a crazy one because the agent, tried to control the buyers as well as possible, but they brought their kids and their kids just beelined in different directions. So it was one of those situations where, how do you best herd cats? I mean,
because the standard is the agent is supposed to be with their client throughout the showing. They shouldn't let them go into the kitchen because it's actually a risk issue for the agent because where'd my jewelry go? Right.
Yeah.
And so you have to kind of exercise kind of ordinary risk management for even showing a home. But also, these people are going to say something was broken. We spent a lot of time, we were both on a form committee for a large trade association, where we spent a lot of time talking about liability of agents entering somebody else's house and something breaking, so you have to be very cautious. And
so what about the issue of, I was talking to a real estate person the other day about the issue of safety at open houses. Have you ever heard? So I didn't even realize this was an issue either.
It's a
but
big
safety of
issue.
the real estate agents themselves. When you have an open house, it's like, hey, anybody who sees this sign on the road, please come into this private place and we'll close the doors. Yeah, I mean, thinking about it now as an ex-prosecutor, I'm like, wow, that is a potential invitation to some bad stuff. Have you guys seen that, or is that an issue that you deal with?
It is an issue. We cover our agent safety extensively in our policy manual, but in also our training. One of the standard things is, you tell the agents, when you're showing a property, you keep everyone going ahead of you into the rooms.
Right.
You don't walk into a room where they can just slam the door and you have no way out. So there's a lot of things that you have to just, be thinking about, because at the end of the day, you're right with, nowadays, a lot of, consumers, buyers, sellers, or buyers, you're not meeting them until you're at the property or they walk into your open house.
Especially open house.
Right.
Yeah.
So safety is a huge, huge concern.
And we're even seeing now, people, if you want help, there's a lot of folks on our forum who will, hey, I'll help attend your open house. We actually had...
like as a
just
safety person.
As a buddy system,
And not even, it's almost like, especially in this market too, it's twofold. It's safety, and it's also,
And
there's so
protecting
many
the property.
people, and it's also, there'll be so many people coming through your homes because the inventory is so low and listings are so sought after. You may even need two people to go through the house with the various people, because you have 2, 3, 4 groups at a time inside.
Yeah.
Credit to, we've got a couple industry partners. The owner of one of our mortgage company actually went with one of our agents that was looking for someone to go to an open house with them this weekend, and he stepped up and said, hey, I'll go with you and be there with you. So,
wow.
Yeah.
I mean, on the other hand, too, you have to be careful about being too cognizant of the people coming and making judgments about them, because an open house is a fair housing issue as well.
Okay.
And so when you show a house, you have to show it to everyone. And you just can't show somebody who, if they look sketchy to you, then there's going to be an accusation.
Well, so let me ask you, though, if the person looks threatening, aren't you allowed to say, hey, I don't want to show you this house, I'm uncomfortable? You can't do that? Private property?
So I'll just say, on the agent side, our training is, if you feel uncomfortable, leave.
Right.
I'll let George take it from there, because I think the question merits more than if you feel uncomfortable, leave. The hard part is,
well, there's always a revisiting of the decision making of that agent to make sure. But if the agent is feeling threatened, that is not going to be a fair housing thing. So, in my view, because it's more important that you deal with the legal issues than the personal safety of a person. It is a better legal judgment to keep people alive and safe than people to be not liable, which is not as critical, because you can always deal with insurance and the litigation or the accusations.
So if somebody says, I'm discriminated against because they didn't let me in the house, and that's a thing. That's a fair housing
It has happened. It has happened. And I represent more than one brokerage. I've had those calls that says, I was afraid to let this person in. They showed up. They looked,
however,
they looked threatening to me because they didn't look dressed for the occasion.
Gotcha. So what are the other legal issues like that you might, I would never have thought of that until now because I don't do open houses, and most home buyers aren't going to think of that. I assume real estate agents are pretty cognizant of this everywhere. I don't know. You guys do internal training, but most real estate agents. What are the other things that agents might not think of or brokers might not think of that you guys know from your experience, again, being a very successful and larger brokerage now, having grown so fast? What have you run into that you're like, hey, here's a tip, here's a takeaway for you as a broker or an agent that you should think about? Legal challenges or physical kind of operations management challenges dealing with clients and outside. That one is a very interesting one to me.
You know, one of the more recent stories that I think made it into the papers and news was, I think it was maybe in the DC market, there was a group of 3-4 people that were going to open houses, and one would distract the agent while the other 3 would go fill bags full of jewelry and whatever they could get. And that really, put everything, back into perspective. Like, hey guys, these open houses, you got to worry about your safety. You got to worry about protecting the property. And, you've got to be able to manage the crowds that come in, because this stuff really does happen.
Yeah.
And you manage the client ahead of time. Hey, if you have things that are easily carried away from your house, take them out of the house now. Put them in your car. Put them in the car's trunk. Do something a little. Stuff. Yeah, I mean, agents are professionals. They should think about these things. Out. That's right. and they should be thinking of these things. And the good ones know or have been trained to do it.
It's still going to happen, but if you can give that advice, right? That's good.
What I say when I'm working with someone who's listing a home, if think about it this way: if you don't want it gone in terms of jewelry or medication or something, just get it out of here. If you have a safe on, if you have a family member close by, just have it out. Because I don't want everyone. You want to think people are good, but I'm always think worst case, and then hope and then plan for the worst and hope for the best type thing.
Well, I agree. Setting expectations is such a big part of real estate in general, but with sellers, you do up front have to say, hey, look, people are going to go through your stuff. Okay? That just happens, right?
Yeah, wow.
So they're going to open drawers, they're going to open cabinets, and
they don't need to see what's in your drawers, but they're going to do it.
But it's going to happen. It's going to happen. So
That's
just
weird.
Plan accordingly. So put away anything and everything
and moving companies will do it too.
Could you take the opposite approach and put something really shocking in your drawers, like a fake body part, like an arm?
Which would be actually very funny. Yeah.
But I feel like it's effective. Like, there's an arm in here where you shouldn't open my drawer.
Yeah,
where
right.
I keep
but
my
then
arms.
that might scare the buyer away.
Your shrunken heads, whatever it might, that would be funny.
It's plastic.
Yeah.
So
let's hear the reaction of the snooper.
That's funny.
And a snooper's not probably a real buyer. I don't know.
Yeah, true.
I mean, if you're a snooper, I don't know.
That
people misbehave and they're CEOs.
I don't
people
know.
misbehave when they're ordinary thieves. Human nature is not limited to people without money.
So now we're getting into Locke or Hobbes, right? Like the kind of the theory of man. Are we all
I'm more of a
inherently
Rousseau
good?
guy.
Or are we Leviathan? I don't know. So maybe in the real estate world, everybody's kind of a Hobbesian, Darwinian person. Who knows? You guys have any theories on that? I don't know how we got to inherently good or inherently
Why don't we
bad.
just say people evolve?
It's a great mixing bowl. There's, especially just open houses. Not everyone that goes to an open house is looking to buy a house. Decorating, paint colors. Oh, I hear my neighbor's house is gorgeous on the inside.
I did that. I went to go open houses just to see how they did things.
So, people
a
that
lot
have
of
similar
the basement's finished and their basement's unfinished. I wanted to come get ideas on how I'm going to do mine.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it is.
I mean, I guess it's legitimate-ish. Not really.
They opened the house,
Yeah, so you can't have an open house where they sign a contract before they go in.
So
like a liability waiver. Can you take IDs at the door?
I'd be afraid of that because of fair housing. Again, people without IDs may be discriminated against as a disparate impact.
Yeah.
And also, you may have people who are don't have IDs, but they're still entitled to buy houses, like people of national origin coming from France. They may not have an ID with them.
French people have IDs,
but not always on them.
No, those are croissants.
They have croissants, not always on them. IDs, they probably have. So yeah.
Oh no.
So appreciate it, guys. What are the 3 big takeaways for brokers or agents or people in the real estate business that you guys can share with the viewing audience? People who are running their own little real estate shops or mid-sized real estate shops who are looking to maybe be you guys someday, or people who want to work with you. What advice do you give to those people?
So the biggest piece of advice I'll give to the smaller companies under 500 agents is merge with a larger company, because the way the industry has shifted and the different business models out there,
right?
It's very, very hard to have a smaller brokerage and be very, very successful.
So it's economies of scale.
It is economies
right? So
of
to
scale.
be competitive, you need to be in your guys' experience, having been in both, you need to have the infrastructure to give you those kinds of resources, because you can't have hundreds of thousands of leads and all this support in a smaller brokerage. So that's tip one. So what are the other two? We need three things, because that's just what we do.
Well,
Humans like threes.
We're going to get a lot of phone calls off number one, and don't get me wrong, there are awesome smaller brokerages.
Yeah. So,
but at the end of the day, economy of scale is important.
It is. And so is number two, have counsel like George?
Well, you have to have counsel. I mean, like Mike was saying, I joined these guys a few months into the start, and Eric and Chuck and Mike are looking at me when I said, "Hey guys, who's our attorney?" And they looked and they're like, "Well, we haven't taken one on retainer yet." And I'm like, "We need an attorney." They all looked at me like, maybe we should talk about this when we're 200 agents or 300 agents. But Eric and Chuck are smart enough, that yes, this is something we need to explore. We have to find the right fit, because, clearly economy of scale wasn't on our side at that point. So we had to find the right, firm, the right attorney, and then of course the right prices.
So let me ask you guys, this. If I'm looking for an attorney, could I, if I'm small, use my cousin Bob, who's a divorce attorney, or do you need somebody? I mean, what is your advice on finding the right attorney? I mean, George is sitting right here, so obviously
specialized in real estate.
The two criteria that I threw out there for Eric and Chuck and Mike, I said we want a real estate attorney and we want a litigator.
Okay.
And those are two very important things, in my opinion, because at the end of the day, if you're working with someone that's not also in the courtroom, you want to make sure that you're current on everything that is happening in the courtrooms, because inevitably
that's where your money's going.
That's what's going to decide everyone's fate. So with George, like I said, he came highly recommended. He filled both of those needs. And
George is on NVAR forums.
I was. Now I'm not. This year I'm only the chairman of the Attorney Roundtable.
Okay, but so George is deeply involved in the real estate community, and at the same time, you go to court.
And he goes to court.
So which is good.
That's my 2 cents.
Yeah.
Take it for what it's worth. But we've found that both of those, being in real estate specifically and being a litigator, have been excellent selections.
So you have knocked it out of the park for them if they're at 900 and haven't been in court. I'm going to say that. Good job.
That's what I'm
right? I'm going to knock on wood for you too,
because
that's what you want.
George,
and the first court case isn't the end of the world.
No, and
it'll feel like it.
And we realize that it's going to happen, because it happens. But George has just been so important with the growth of the company, because he's given us a good anchor to make sure that the direction, that we were going with things, made sense, kept us compliant. I don't think we would have grown as fast as we have without, having a great anchor out of George. So
and what's the third thing? So what we have so far is economies of scale, to achieve efficiencies and kind of the market sense that you need to be able to be successful as an agent or broker. And secondly, good legal counsel that's in the field, that knows the courtroom and the real estate market and the real estate world. What's the third thing you would say?
In terms of growing from a smaller business
what would you say to any agent or small broker or smaller broker?
Yeah, I think for a big thing, communication, being transparent. So Eric and Chuck and Chris, everyone is very clear on this is what we're doing and this is why we're doing it. I'm very impressed.
So corporate culture.
So
in other words, the internal ability to be just blunt with each other.
Well, not even just blunt. I mean, it's the way that they describe it to the group. Hey, we are making this change at a brokerage level, and here's why. Some people and some companies say, we are the bosses. This is what's happening. They say, well, why? You don't need to know why.
Because.
No, they are very
Right.
clear in
'Cause we
how they
said so.
deliver it. And they say, oh, and then in most cases, it's like, oh, that makes sense. And Chuck and Eric, and they're very agent focused. And it's like, this is why we think it's great for the brokerage and why your business are going to grow
Gotcha.
from it. Yeah.
And I would just add that the four principals, Mike and Chris and Chuck and Eric, are passionate about what they do. You're not going to be successful in a real estate brokerage or basically any business unless you just really have that next level of care. And they really do. So, I mean, it's been quite impressive to see them grow and have such passion
Well,
about
the
what
numbers
they're doing.
don't lie, right? Numbers speak for themselves. You guys have killed it so far. Good team. Thank you guys for coming today.
No, we
Appreciate it.
appreciate
Thank
the
you for having us.
opportunity. This is awesome.
Yeah, so thank you for listening. Download us wherever you get your podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, or Play. Thanks to Chris and Mike and George for joining us today on BlackLetter Podcast. We'll see you next time. Thanks. That's all for today's episode of BlackLetter. Thanks again for listening. Join us next time when we talk about more BlackLetter issues in creative ways. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and Google Play so you never miss an episode. And to catch us on video, check out our website at blackletterstudios.com.